A blessed morning to you, dearly beloveds. I pray that I find you all well, and I pray that you are being blessed as you continue your journey of worship. This year, as Beyond All Limits Church, we are focusing on reflecting on our worship as we look at John chapter number 4, where Jesus had a conversation with the woman at the well, where they were talking about worshiping the Lord in spirit and in truth. They went into deep discussion as to what is worship. Is worship going into the mountain? Is worship going to Jerusalem? As the woman was beginning to speak about the differences between the Jews and the Samaritans. And Jesus gave an answer to the woman that was very, very deep, to say, it's a time that is coming and a time that has already come when it's neither going to be about the mountain or even about the place of worship, whether it's Jerusalem, whether it's Beyond All Limits Church, or whether you are going to whatever kind of church that you might want to describe. And we are living in a generation whereby people are very, very, sensitive about their church, their identity to a particular denomination, and some even go to the extent of taking pride in their denomination. We have now come to a place whereby we have stickers on our cars to proclaim that I am this part of this denomination. And I want to believe that even during the times of Jesus, there was that kind of approach to worship that probably the Samaritans felt that they were doing the right thing of going to the mountain, as we can hear the woman beginning to ask Jesus to say, you Jews, you say we should go to Jerusalem, but us, our ancestors used to worship in the mountain, which means to say it has always been that debate. But Jesus had to answer it, and I wish the story could have been finished with Jesus. I wish that conversation, everything could have completed the stance of the church to say, what is true worship? I wish that answer could have been so clear even to us, even as the church of today, as we begin to walk and transition on this journey of worship. But sadly, even in this time and in this season that we are living in as believers, we are still battling with that same question that the woman asked at the well. But yet Jesus gave the answer clearly to say that the Lord is seeking those that are going to worship him in spirit and in truth. I think the reason why people are still debating on this matter, or are still finding ourselves, or we are still finding ourselves falling short as far as this matter is concerned, I believe is because we don't fully understand what Jesus meant when he said God is seeking those that will worship him in spirit and in truth. And we have been going on a series as Beyond All Limits Church in looking at different aspects that define true worship. And if you look at the way Jesus did his ministry, I believe through and through he was trying to help and to guide people in understanding what it means to worship the Lord in spirit and in truth. And it is quite clear that Jesus, the worship that he found in the synagogue by the Pharisees, by the Jewish Pharisees, was not in spirit and in truth. Because if it was, Jesus would have pointed to say, this is the kind of worship that the Father is seeking, pointing to the Pharisees and to the Jews. But instead, to the Pharisees and the Jews, he actually condemned their kind of worship. He described it, in a way that showed that it had nothing to do with people being connected with God, but rather it took people away from God. So in this generation that we are in, we need to also understand other Pharisaic, kind of worships that bring people further away from God or drive people further away from God as we seek to understand more what it means to worship the Lord in spirit and in truth. And one of the things, I was reading a book by William Law. It's a very powerful book, and there's a statement that he said which I want to share with you. He says that, but to all this it must yet be added that a religion of self. Do you hear that? A religion of self. And I know that sounds very familiar. A religion of self, of worldly glory, of prosperity carried on under the gospel state. So it's a religion that is being carried under the gospel state, just like as it was during the time of Jesus, that even in the synagogue, there is what was being presented as the message of God, but yet it was being carried by all kinds of Pharisaic ways of doing things, which was taking people away from God. And in this time, in this generation, in this dispensation that we are living in right now, we are also experiencing the same, where we see worldly glory, prosperity, and a religion of self being propagated in the church, which is not worshiping the Lord in spirit and in truth. And you know, William Law goes on to say that this kind of religion, of worldly glory, of prosperity, and you know, self, it is more diabolical in nature than that of the Jewish Pharisees. This is what we are experiencing right now. And the way William Law presents it, he says it is even more diabolical than what the Jewish Pharisees were doing during the time of Jesus. He says it is the highest and last working of the mystery of iniquity. Iniquity is a mystery. The falling of man is a mystery that we all are battling with. And the way William Law says it, he says that when we see it happening, it is a mystery. Because when you see it happening, people are even struggling to say, okay, is this wrong or is it right? And William Law makes it clear, and he helps us understand to say that the reason why even people actually debate about this religion of law, of actually self, worldly glory and prosperity, is because it's a mystery of iniquity. Because it leaves to self, to Satan and the world, in and by a daily profession of denying and dying to self, of being crucified with Christ, of being led by the Spirit, and of being risen from the world and set with him in the heavenly places. Beloveds, this religion that is thriving even in this generation right now is denying everything about self-denial. It's denying everything about being crucified with Christ. It's denying everything about being led by the Spirit. It's denying everything about our resurrection from the dead and being seated with Christ in the heavenly places. It's denying all that the gospel stands for. But sadly, the church has embraced it. I want to challenge you today to say that may you take time to reflect on your worship and ask yourself, Jesus, what did you really mean when you said, I'm seeking, or the Father is seeking those that will worship him in spirit and in truth? Because I believe when we as the church begin to understand what it means to worship the Lord in spirit and in truth, then we will be going in the direction that God wants us to go as those that have been called according to his purpose and according to his will. God bless you.